Alright, so I got the fan off. These crappy wrenches from Amazon pretty much just slid over the clutch fan nuts, so they were useless, as I figured. So I went with the air hammer solution and annihilated the nut pretty much. I think the only reason it actually came off because it just destroyed it. It was extremely seized on there. And it looks like I gotta clean up some threads just a little bit, maybe a lot of bit. Hopefully it's not screwed, or I'll have to get a new fan pulley. Yeah, good stuff. Trudy. Yeah, come clean this thing up before I put it back on. Or do that. Wow. Pretty cool. Alright, just test fitting the new clutch fan, make sure the threads are correct and that my threads aren't all jacked up, and surprisingly enough, they're still okay. And then wiped all the grime off the fan, figured might as well. So now I can pop this back off, put the fan on, and start reassembly. Alright, now that this thing isn't seized on, this crappy little wrench might actually come in handy. Let's see. Yeah, so far so good. Getting pretty tight. Can't believe those threads are okay. All right, we're snugged up. A couple pro tip, take the couplers all the way off the intercooler. Makes it way easier instead of trying to fight it and ending up with cool stuff like this. Otherwise, those brackets, as you can see, just don't pass it without ramming it into the fan or possibly damaging it. So definitely just take those off. Do it from the get-go. It'll make removing the stock radiator easier also. All right, new radiator's in. I pulled the rubber mounts off the stock radiator. They slid right in. And then also the lower mounts popped off there. Everything fit pretty nicely. This thing doesn't look that much thicker than the stock one, but the end tanks are probably twice as big, so there's definitely some extra capacity, but it's definitely not as thick as I hoped. All right, so far, super impressed with this cheap radiator. It's got bungs for the mounts for the power steering cooler. Used all the stock hardware. Everything worked as it should. This rarely ever happens, even with name brand parts. So for it to happen with like a eBay radiator and everything's fitting as it should, it's quite a surprise. My new wiring for the clutch fan, I'm gonna drill a couple holes here and zip tie this down to keep it from getting up into the fan. My last one got into the fan, so I'm gonna do that next. Other than that, smooth install so far. All right, buttoning all this up. Added a couple washers here because the bolt was bottoming out before it was pulling the shroud. Snug. Probably don't need 4, but they're there. Just another reminder, definitely take these couplers all the way off. It makes things a lot easier for pulling the radiator in and out. But I had to add a different clamp here. The nipple is a little bit smaller, so just added a fuel line clamp. Other than that, all this stock hardware worked on this radiator. Besides adding these washers, everything's buttoned up now. Just gotta put the intake back on and get fluids in it. So it took all 4 gallons that I drained out of it, but it wants a little bit more still. So I'm gonna have to run to the store and get some coolant and ATF4 for the power steering from the fluid that I lost when I changed this line here. And then we will be finished up.